We all heard the talk about the new rule changes in Major League Baseball in spring training and leading up to the start of the 2023 season. From the grumpy purist who still talks about Mickey Mantle as if he just retired yesterday, to the newer fan who thinks baseball is boring but wants to give it another try this year. Let's take a look at the impact of rule changes in Major League Baseball after 4 weeks into the 2023 season, and look ahead to other rule changes we may see in the future. The main impact currently being overlooked is glaring, and that is, people are actually talking about baseball seriously in the first month of the season. Prior to this year, the hype was about springtime and the traditional start of America's favorite pastime, baseball. Talking heads made predictions on what teams will be competitive and what teams won't. This was quickly followed by a few days of excitement and then the ultimate settling into a long, slow season. Have you noticed there's very little talk about who's leading whose division? Even with the surprise Tampa Bay Rays on a tear, all the talk is about the rule changes. And why not? It's made the game so much more interesting. And it hasn't changed the game of baseball. The game is still the same. It's just like it was 30 or 40 years ago, not in the last decade. The home run is still the king of all hits. Pitchers still are in control of the game. That's why it's odd that the grumpy purist is up in arms over the rule changes. Well, maybe not all of them, but one in particular, starting a runner at second base in extra innings. Sure, it's a little gimmicky, but what they're failing to realize is it's only in the regular season. In the playoffs, this rule goes away. And is that a problem? No. Is it okay to have a rule during the season and not the playoffs? Of course it is. The number one complaint about baseball games is too long, followed by not enough action. This accomplishes both, and it's in the regular season, not the playoffs. The rule that's had the biggest impact by far is the pitch clock. Similar to the shot clock in the NBA or the play clock in the National Football League. Rob Manfred's been pushing for this since he started as commissioner, and why not? It has really sped up the game. Are you listening, golf? The grumpy purist is also worried that this will ruin the game, but what it has done is it's added additional strategy. Take a look at Max Scherzer. He has manipulated the pitch clock to a T, so much in fact that they've actually changed the rule because of him. Since pitchers are on a pitch clock, batters are only allowed to step out or call timeout once during each plate appearance. Scherzer frequently holds the ball up until that 8-second moment, almost all the way until the 1-second moment to get that batter to step out of the box, so then he can quick pitch from there on out. This is how teams and players will be successful with the new rules. The players and teams that figure out the strategy involved with them will succeed, while the others that complain won't. Let's take a look at the strategy for stolen bases. Prior to the 2023 season, pitchers could step off or throw over to first as many times as they like, all night long. You would hear crowds moan after 5, 6, 7 pickoff attempts. It was boring. In 2023, the pitcher is only allowed 2 disengagements from the mound. If he disengages a third time and throws over and doesn't record an out, that's called a balk, and the base runner is awarded the next base. So the base runner strategy is simple here. Get him to disengage 2 times, then when he comes set, the base runner is now in the driver's seat. Not only are stolen bases up, but more importantly, attempts are up. A stolen base is one of the most exciting plays in baseball. You, on the offense, want to make it to the base. You, on the defense, want to see your catcher gun that guy down. It's exciting to watch. That's the whole point. And what about the larger bases? Many thought that would lead to more stolen bases, but actually what they had in mind was different. Larger bases were put in place to lessen the collisions between runners and fielders at those bases. Collisions between runners and fielders were common with the shorter bases, especially at first base. Now with that extra 3 inches, the first baseman can extend even beyond that to avoid the collision. That's why home plate has remained the same. That's where you score runs, and collisions at home plate were taken out of the game years ago, and that's a good thing. Collisions led to fights and players being hurt and put on the disabled list, all bad things for Major League Baseball. Now let's take a look at the shift rules. This is another one that not only the commissioner, but fans have been wanting to see for years. The solution was actually already there. Hit the ball where they're not. But with the emphasis on the long ball and power, players simply did not do that. Now, with second base being the border for fielders on either side not able to cross, you're seeing more singles, more ground balls with eyes, and more excitement. Singles are way up all across the league this year, leading to more base runners, more runs scored, more excitement for the fan. So as a whole, I think it's suffice to say that all rule changes have been positive for the game. If anything, like we said in the beginning, people are talking about baseball. Granted, we're only 1 month into the season, but if this is an indication of what we're in store for, it's going to be an exciting and interesting season in Major League Baseball. Now that we've explored the new rule changes and their impacts on the 2023 season, let's take a look at some of the experimental rule changes Major League Baseball is looking at for years to come. The Atlantic League has long been known as Major League Baseball's proving ground, and it's no different this year. They're trying 3 new rules, none of which are popular at this point. One rule that's getting killed by fans is the double hook DH rule, which allows clubs to use the designated hitter provided that the club's starting pitcher has completed at least 5 innings. If the starting pitcher gets the hook before the end of the 5th inning, the DH also gets the hook and the next pitcher has to bat for himself. Again, this one is extremely unpopular. What if your starting pitcher gets hammered in the 1st inning? Then you lose your starting pitcher and your DH all at the same time, no exceptions. There is one possible solution. Hey pitchers, learn to hit. Have you seen this guy named Ohtani? The next rule is also unpopular. It allows for a pitcher to only have 1 single disengagement per at-bat. While we get the idea of the double hook DH, this one seems to make no sense at all. With a pitch clock and only 2 disengagements allowed, why take it to 1? People hate it. It's certainly no surprise why. Keep in mind, with the hate show, these are only experimental and temporary attempts at rules that possibly would make it to Major League Baseball. Now, the third is by far the most interesting and something we have talked about for years. A designated pinch runner. Yes, you heard that right. Just like the designated hitter, a person is out there just to run for people on base. In the test rule, the pinch runner can run for anyone who's on base, not just a specific person like the designated hitter. While we like this rule and we think it will someday make it to Major League Baseball, we do think the tweak should be just like the DH. That runner can only run for 1 player on the offense. Think of a guy like David Ortiz doubling in the top of the 10th. You would always put a pinch runner in him before, but if that runner doesn't score, David Ortiz would have been allowed to go back into the game in the 11th inning. It's not gimmicky, it just makes good baseball sense, and it will add excitement to the game. In addition, it'll make a specialty player, a super speedster out there. I mean, look at the DH. Very few of them ever play in the field. You remember Matt Stairs? Professional hitter. Occasionally he'd fill in at first base, but he was there to hit. And just like that, you'll have a speedster on the bench who's there to run. So the first 2 experimental rules I think we could ditch, but this one needs some tweaking and it belongs in Major League Baseball. That's our wrap up on the first 4 weeks in baseball with the new rule changes and what might be some rule changes coming in the future. Let us know your thoughts on the new rules and the experimental ones as well. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you down the road.